Hello and welcome to another TV Central podcast. I'm Aaron Ryan. Let me give you two clues to who today's podcast star is. First clue was the former star of a popular Australian drama. Second clue, host of a popular Australian music talent show. Well, you would be right if you guessed the former star of Heartbreak High and the host of Pop Stars Live, Mr. Luke Jacobz. Thanks for joining us, and that's taking us back a bit, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it is actually. Hello. Mate, Heartbreak High was back in '98, and Popstars was in 2004, I think it was.
Yeah. Well, of course, you're the host now of The X Factor, which cannot be described as anything less than a monster hit with its return in 2011. It's been the number one program around Australia each and every night it has aired after 8 episodes. Must be a pleasing result for Seven and the team involved.
Oh, absolutely. Every morning we sort of, we're waiting with bated breath, waiting for the results and the ratings, and from the last, we've had 8 episodes go to air, and we've won every single night. So it's just been great. I mean, putting such the hours that we do in, it's just such a credit to the team that's been involved. So yeah, we're all really really happy with it.
The show did well last year, but perhaps not quite as well as Seven had hoped. I was just wondering what ingredient you think was added to the show this year that perhaps was maybe missing in 2010.
Look, I think like a lot of the shows that sort of come on, people, they want to wait to see what it's like, and after the series, did go quite well last year. Everyone got the gist of the show. Shows build up momentum, and people that watched last year, if they're happy, they've tuned in, and people that didn't watch last year are tuning in now. So, look, these shows always they build as the years go on, and we're really excited. Having our two new judges come in is also fantastic. With Mel and Nat. And they're doing a fantastic job, so we're really happy.
Well, speaking of those two judges, Mel B and Natalie Bassingthwaighte, who joined, what sort of point of difference do you think they've brought to the show?
Look, I think everybody likes to have a lot of different views on singers, and having two different judges, you get two different opinions. And Mel has a way of saying things where sometimes she laughs it off and makes a bit of a joke of it if it's an entertaining piece. But if it's something that she thinks wasting her time, she's got no shame in saying, get off, you're wasting my time. And that's just a lovely, bubbly girl. She finds humour in everything. And if there is something that does move her with Pamela Cook's story, the cancer survivor, looking at Nat, she gave herself into that story as well, and Nat was really, really lovely, and sort of, she's happy to shed a tear, and it's lovely to have difference of opinion with all four judges.
Well, one of the biggest feedbacks that I've seen on forums is people are absolutely loving Mel B. What's she been like to work with?
She's been great. Look, working with somebody that has done the sort of things that she's done over her life, touring the world for years with the Spice Girls, and she got her own reality show, and she's always got a story, and she's incredibly bubbly. Her scary Spice name, like I said, she's not scared to, if she doesn't like something, to say it. But I didn't know what to expect with Mel being such a huge star that she is. I didn't know how to act around her, and whether I had to, form a certain code and don't say certain things. But she's brilliant. She's just, like once you meet her and you get to know her, she's great. She's just, you'd be sitting at the table having lunch, and I didn't know whether she'd go off to her green room and have her lunch, but she sat with us all, and she's just another person, and it's so lovely. And you'd be talking to her about somebody. She says, yeah, I know them, and someone will play a song, and she's like, yeah, I was at their place last week. So she knows a lot of people, and she's been in the industry for a very long time.
Can you just give us a little update about how Mel B's doing? I mean, she's had the baby. It's been reported on the news. Is everything going well?
As far as I know, I haven't spoken to her since she's had the baby. I spoke to her a little bit before, like a week or two beforehand, and she was fine. She was still out walking, and the baby was overdue, and she went to I think it was the VCA Awards, the big music awards that were over there, and
Yeah.
yeah, she was out sort of doing a thing. I haven't spoken to her since she's had the baby, so I'm looking forward to. She's coming out here. I think it's next week. I think she's back in Australia. So yeah, looking forward to catching up and meeting the new baby girl.
Well, let's talk about the talent themselves. I mean, does it surprise you? I mean, it does me that more and more exceptional talent is being unearthed, despite there being plenty of previous opportunities through shows like Australian Idol or Australia's Got Talent and things like that.
Yep. Look, I think the thing with these shows is, there's a lot of people that can sing out there, and some people, they might just hold off. They might not want to. They may not feel ready. They might not have had the experience. They might just be too shy. They're happy with, doing little gigs in little music venues, and I'm surprised as well. And you're seeing with all the shows that have been going for years and years. And you think surely, anyone that's a good singer, we've seen them before. But year after year, it proves that we haven't. And these new people that are coming out here that, some people haven't never performed in front of people before in their lives, but they've always just sort of sung and thought it was something nice to do. But, they're saying, well, look, I'll give it a go. It could be a platform that could change my career or start my
Mm.
career. So people are now seeing these shows, and I think with the X Factor too, the difference with the X Factor is they get to actually work with our judges. The judges are coming in as mentors, and they actually sit in the studios, in the recording studios with them, and they work with them vocally, breathing and pitch, and how to stand, how to perform, how to prepare,
Yeah.
how to actually go into each performance. So I think having that aspect with the X Factor is that's the different point between that and any other singing show that's out there at the moment, is that they actually get to work with these people that have sold millions of albums.
Yeah. Well, let's have a chat about a couple of the talent. First, up front. Now, they're the two girls dressed up in the school uniforms. I mean, the question has to be asked: are they for real? I mean, there's someone's, people saying it's quite suspicious that it's all an act and put on. So, I mean, are you able to tell us is this 100% genuine?
This is 100% genuine. That's exactly like they are. And I mean, sitting in the edit suite, cutting the show and knowing which bits to put in and which bits not to put in, it took us hours because we could put everything in, and it was, we're only showing the little bits and pieces here and there that that display what these girls are like. They are fantastic. They're just genuine girls, and this is how they are. And I was on Twitter last night during the episode, and people saying, are they serious? What's going on? That's exactly how they are, and watching them in that boot camp stage was just brilliant because they start to put the pressure on, and they really they really want to, like what everyone that's gone into this competition, they really want to make it. They want to be record-selling artists, and I find it extremely entertaining.
Well, the other one to, I guess, mention is Emmanuel. That's the guy with the amazing story on the first audition episode. There's been some that have got through with amazing backstories, but you wonder how much of their story is part of that decision. In his case, I mean, he definitely has the voice to go through, even despite his story. How's he travelling?
He's loving it at the moment. He's loving the phone calls and the interviews and the he was on Today Tonight the other day, and look, he's just going about his business at school, and when he's singing, and it's great. Look, a lot of people do come in with different stories, but it's funny when you're watching people and you're having a chat with them. The X Factor isn't just about the voice; it's about where you've come from, and we want to watch people that we don't want to just see just hear a voice. We want to get to know these people, and we want to go on this huge ride with them. And when they have a story, you become part of their life, and you know where they've come from, and you know where they want to go, and then you know what they're up to at the moment. So it makes you more involved with that person. And I think the people that get put through, it's you're closing your eyes and you hear a voice, but then you also want to see that person go through. So like story or not, I mean, the main aim of the show is to obviously have a voice, but if they've got a story to go along with it as well, it's even better.
I guess the last one to mention would be with Declan. He just seems to be like an interesting guy, for a better word. Tell us about his journey so far.
Look, he's a fantastic young guy. You know, he said one of the first things he ever said was, before the X Factor was, sort of him and his computer,
Mhm.
and that was it. But he has a great connection with the songs that he's sung, and watching him, this somewhat geeky sort of looking guy. He's got bright white, sort of grey looking hair. Very interesting look. I'm 6 foot and he's taller than me, and he's this lanky fellow, but when he starts to sing, you just stop and you find yourself forgetting what's going on around you, and you just think, wow, you don't expect that sort of voice to come out from him, and I loved watching him at the auditions and boot camp. It was a lot of fun to sit down and watch this guy that's really, really nervous and does put pressure on himself, and then the music kicks in and he just becomes this different. He becomes a performer. It's great to see.
So, how does the series pan out now? We've had the auditions and the boot camp. Next week, we've got the final boot camp episode and then 3 home visit episodes. What happens thereafter? Do we get into the live performance shows?
Yeah, we don't have a break at all. We go straight from the home visits where the judges basically at the end of boot camp they're left with 6, and then the judges make 6 of their contestants. Some are amazing, and out of those 6 they pick 3, and those 3 are the ones that go to the live shows, and the live shows are starting the Monday after the home visit. So, I think it's the 19th of September. We go straight to live, and the people that have been put through, they are now performing on stage, cameras everywhere with millions of people watching. So it's going to be great to see how they handle that pressure from going from singing in front of, a judge and an assistant judge, going into a huge studio on a stage with lights, and the pressure is going to be amazing. So I love watching them and see how they handle that. It's a really, you feel part of their life, and you feel as though you know them. And I spend a lot of time with the contestants, and it's great because when I see them perform, and if they do a great job, I'm side of stage, ready to walk on, and I'm just buzzing. I'm so excited that they've done such a great job. I'm really looking forward to the live aspect.
Absolutely, yeah. September 19th. Can't wait for that one, the live shows. Look, can we have a little bit of a chat about you? I mean, my understanding is that your name, Luke Jacobz, is a screen name and not your proper full name. Tell us about that and why you chose a screen name.
I chose it because growing up, my dad had a business that he ran from home, so we just wanted to have a little bit of privacy, and we thought that Jacobz is actually my middle name, so we dropped the last bit, and it was just basically so that my family and everyone can just carry on living their lives and not have to and not to have any worries of privacy. So that was changed when I was I think I was 16 at the time when we changed it.
All right. We were actually born in the same year and a month apart. I mean, you have a quite a special birthday though, born on Valentine's Day. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes.
So how does that go when you're dating? She takes you out for your birthday, you take her out for Valentine's Day. Does your birthday get lost in there?
Yeah. What I've done over the years, if I'm seeing someone coming around the time of my birthday, I'll put in I'll get a hat and I'll put a couple of dates on a piece of paper and like scratch, put them in. You have like a sort of lucky dip. And that, whatever you go out, that is then Valentine's Day. So I don't lose my special day. So we'll pick a day. We'll pick a weekend day, and then that way, I get to take my girl out and I get to, give her a nice romantic dinner and do the Valentine's Day thing. So it doesn't interfere. So if I've ever got a girlfriend that during that time of year, then they have to be of the understanding that Valentine's Day is my birthday, and then I'll create a whole new Valentine's Day for them.
This is slightly going to show my geek side. I loved Heartbreak High. I mean, how was that? You were Zach in the show, weren't you?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I was 17 years old when I did that. That was my first contract role. It was my first full-time, acting job, and I was living at home, and I was actually doing my plumbing apprenticeship at the time, and I went in for the audition, and I got the role, and so 17-year-old full-time acting work. It was fantastic for me. I was such an amazing learning curve. I'd been on sets before, as a guest role or a commercial, and so you sort of learn a little bit, but you're in, you do your bit, and then you leave. But when you become part of a cast, you get to know your directors and your soundos and the camera assistants, and you get to know everyone so much more. So when you're sitting around, whether it be at lunchtime or in between scenes, I'm the sort of person that will ask loads of questions. And so it was an amazing learning curve for me, and everyone that was on that set were really, really helpful, and they were like, he's a 17-year-old kid that's starting this, but he wants to know. He wants to learn more about the industry, and I found it fantastic. I found it such a steep learning curve because I had to learn it on the go. It wasn't as though
Mm.
I did a 4-year acting course first and then jumped onto the set. I was learning it as I went, and it was a great way to learn, how the industry works. It was brilliant.
You then you went into television presenting after that, so I guess that's where the presenting role comes from with the Big Arvo. Why did you make the switch from acting to presenting?
Look, it's one of the things is you often find in the industry that you get pigeonholed, and if you play one particular character on a long time series, a lot of time it's hard to break out of that. It's hard for people to see you as somebody else, and wanting to be an actor and presenter, just the whole TV industry, entertainment industry, just I fell in love with. So I went for a few auditions after I'd finished Heartbreak High, and so I wanted it to be my career, and then the Big Arvo came up, and it was presenting on a kids show, and I thought I've never presented before, and I think another again wanting to try and absorb as much information as I possibly could. I thought kids TV would be the best because you're working you're working with the in the environments that everyone in television say don't work with. Don't work with kids and animals. And working on this kids show, we were working with both quite often, and it was a great learning curve. And I love presenting. It's to me, it's like bungee jumping and skydiving. They're both very, very similar. You both have the same, but they've got their differences. And for a long time on Heartbreak High, I was always told, don't look at the camera because the camera's not there. You're acting. You're in a scene, and then you go into presenting, and they say, the camera is your best friend. Always look at the camera. So it was going from one extreme to the other, and I love that kids show because kids TV, kids, a lot of people they don't want to see the same thing twice. If they've already seen
Mm.
a story on, say, penguins, they don't want to tune in the next day and see a story on penguins.
Yeah.
So we were always doing something different every single day, and for me that was one of the biggest things for me was I didn't want to be trapped doing exactly the same thing every single day, going to the same place and speaking to the same person, or in that environment. So I loved going each day. All right, today we're going to Movie World, and the next day, okay, we're going to a zoo, and the next day we're going to a factory, and so every day was different, and you wake up, looking forward to each day.
Well, your co-host on the Big Arvo, James Tobin, who hosted the original show, The Big Breakfast, and then joined you when the show morphed into the Big Arvo. Um, his career also took off with Seven. So these type of shows can be just as big, big as big breaks as being on something like Home and Away. So how were those days with James? And are you still mates?
Oh, yeah, we're really good mates actually. I see James all the time, and look, it is one of those things. It can be, it can be a platform because, you're looking at a network such as Seven that James and I have worked for now for years. They know what we're capable of because the people that we work with, whether it be in production or, the cameras, the sound, or anywhere, we've worked with that network, that family before, so they know what we're like. So, working on those sort of shows, they sit there and go, well, we can get James or we can get Luke in because, we've worked with him on that, and these people that are going to be working on this new show that have worked with Luke before, so there's already going to be a bond. And so, yeah, they really do. The network's fantastic in that regard, as they really nurture you. Getting a break on the Big Arvo with Seven was fantastic, and I've had so many gigs with Seven since then, and you feel part of a family, and when another gig comes up with Seven, you think great.
Mm.
I've been with him now for I started with them in 2000, so working with them for such a long time, you know your producers and you know your camera guys and you know your locations, and it just makes it you don't feel as though you're starting fresh on a new job every time you start fresh on a new job, sort of thing.
Well, most people may not remember that the X Factor is not your first music show presenting role. You hosted Pop Stars Live, as we mentioned at the start of the podcast. Just tell us about that experience.
Look, that was my first live show, live presenting show. I'd been working on the kids show by then for about 4 years, and it was always that thing of if you make a mistake, you can go again. If you make a mistake, you can go again. But when it came into the live show, there was none of that. It's that was the big lesson for me was when that red light's on and it's live, that's it. And that taught me. I mean, that show taught me that be yourself. If I'm trying to be somebody different, I'm going to make mistakes. If I'm trying to present like another presenter, or if I'm trying to be a host like another host, and if I make a mistake, that'll be in the back of my mind. But if I'm just myself, then I'm not doing anything wrong because that's who I am. So, and that was brilliant. I love that show. And like I said, you become so invested in the people that are performing, and you want them to do so well. And that was great. And I've met some people that have been people in my life, and
Mm.
Molly Meldrum being one of them. Every time I see him, he come up, big hug, and he's, how you going? We sit down and we talk for half an hour on what we've both been doing and how we're going in our lives. And Molly was great to me. And he was always really, really encouraging. And there was one point I'll never forget it on the X Factor where I walked out on the stage and it was, this is pop stars, and I walked out on the stage and I introduced the judges and everything was great. And on the last show, Molly stopped the whole show and I thought, oh no, what's he doing now? What is he going to say? And he said, I'd like to introduce the host, Lou Jacobz. And that was a really big thing for me because as far as I was concerned, I was there to host the show. It was, introduce the judges, here's the talent, have a chat with them afterwards, and there you go, getting from A to B. But then when Molly got up there and introduced me, that was a really big thing for me because, I mean, name a person in Australia that doesn't know who Molly Meldrum is. And for him to actually get up there and give me that credit and to sort of introduce me, that was really nice. It was a big moment for me.
Well, that sounds awesome. So then back to acting with McLeod's Daughters, and then Home and Away as Angelo. You made the switch again back to acting. So I mean, what do you prefer in the end, the acting or the presenting, or you're happy to do both?
Oh, look, I'm happy to do both. It's a different kind of like, like in summer you like to go to the beach. In winter you don't. In winter you like to go to the snow. Like when I'm presenting, it's the live stuff. I love all that live element of the pressures being on. But when I'm acting, I love being a different character. I actually love. I know it sounds really, really stupid, but I love going home and studying my lines and figuring out and creating that character within myself. Because you get a basis when you're doing acting, they give you a basis of what the character is. I mean, you might workshop it with the writers and the producers and directors, but when you're getting your scripts, you're creating that character within yourself, and that gives you like again a sense of freedom because you think this is my baby, this is something that I can mould and create and it's fantastic when a director comes up to you and says, with this scene, how would Angelo, cope with this? How would, Patrick deal with this scenario? It's great to sit down there and have that input and say, look, I know this character better than anyone. And, it's invigorating because you're becoming this person. And so having the acting when you're becoming somebody else and throwing your whole person into it, because the camera captures everything. So when you're performing in front of a camera, everything's being seen. Everything is actually being captured on that camera. So your body language, your breathing, your voice, your posture, everything's being looked at because people want to believe that person they're seeing, and that gives you, an amazing buzz. And so you've got that aspect, and then you go to presenting where, it's I'm just being me, and I don't have to be anyone else, and I can, if people like my presenting, brilliant. If they don't, then maybe I'm not the host that they should be watching. So. It's great, and I love having, especially now, being able to do both the acting and presenting. I'm getting the best of both worlds, so I couldn't be happier.
Well, I guess you can't have a interview with you without mentioning one other thing that you did. You were part of a big Australian reality show. Of course, that would be Channel 9's Hole in the Wall. You filmed an episode of that. No, I am talking about Dancing with the Stars. How was that?
Look, doing the Hole in the Wall, that was one of my favourite shows because when you're standing there in silver spandex bodysuits, elbow pads and arm pads, and we had a great time on that show. And it was just at the end of the day, it was about watching people that everybody sees, every night on TV, whether it be for the Getaway or the news or another drama, seeing those people just being themselves and actually having fun. So that was a lot of fun. And then when we go to Dancing with the Stars, that was probably the most rewarding experience I've ever had in my life. It was I've never worked so hard at anything in my life. I've never wanted something so much than I did when I was doing Dancing with the Stars, and to be able to come up with that win, it was a different feeling, a feeling that I've never felt before. You know, something that I worked so hard at, and you know that. I mean, there's a sense of relief, but there's a sense of pride as well, and having that was just great. And it was not just for me. You know, this was my parents and my grandparents and
Mm.
friends and any relative that I had was just, you know, every single time I'd finish the dance, I'd get 40 odd text messages from all the family saying, "Oh, Luke, that was great, blah blah blah," you know. And having that was, you know, a sense of pride of doing that, not just for myself, but, you know, doing it for Luda as well, and also the family. So, again, another a really rewarding thing that I've done in my life.
Yeah, you look like you're having a lot of fun with that show. Look back to the X Factor. What can viewers expect moving forward?
The best thing about the X Factor I find with this year is the range. There's, you know, in every show you're going to see something that's different to the previous singer. You know, there's not one singer or group that are similar. Everybody has their own edge. We've got some really soft, beautiful singers. We've got some hard, belchy singers. We've got some amazing harmonies. We've got some really. I mean, with the groups category, you're looking at whether it's a pair, a duo, or four of them. You've got to, you know, you're watching all of those performers singing together, and they're up there on stage together, and you can see them relying on each other and depending on each other, but also working with each other to lift each other up. And
Mm.
you know, with our age category, that's been dropped down to 14. So we've seen that with the auditions and the boot camp, and when we get to live, you know, it could be as old as our oldest person in boot camp. So, you know, the range of stuff, and I think the great thing about that is it's not just an age thing; it's also a style thing. You know, you can have a 14-year-old girl singing, you know, beautiful opera stuff, and then you can have a 45-year-old man singing beautiful opera stuff. So we've got a great range this year, and I think that's the best thing. So because from start to finish, you know, you're not going to like every performer, because, you know, that's why we've got, you know, 12 in there, so we can have a huge range. So, you know, everybody can, you know, can see something that they're going to like. And I mean, I've seen the boot camp, the home visits, and watching these people audition. I'm so excited. I'm so looking forward to watching them get up on stage, and just I can't wait for the reviews, because I'm so confident. I just know that Australia's just going to think, look at it, how this is Australia. We're producing talent like this, and everyone's going to have, you know, a sense of pride in their own country. It's going to be great.
And any early favourites for you?
Look, it's hard to have favourites for me, because I'm each judge has their own category. So, you know, the judge, out of the four judges, they don't know who's in everyone else's category.
Mm.
They don't know yet. They won't know, and we've done this on purpose. The judges won't know who's made it through in each category until they watch it on the Thursday night, the last of the home visits, which is
Wow.
really exciting, because, you know, because when the judges are at their home visits, if they know who else has been picked, they can then come up with a strategy to try and counteract that. But they don't. They're going in this with they've got their category, and it's like, we need the best of the best. We need. I don't care who other categories got what. I'm going to put my best three forward. So they're not going to know who's going to be going up against who. So that's going to be really interesting. That's going to be really fun to watch.
Oh, yeah, I thought they would have known in advance. That is interesting. Well, second last question. Well, I'm not going to ask you who's going to win, but if you had to have a punt, which group or which judge do you think the winner will come from?
See, that's again great question. I'm going to try and answer this as best as I possibly can. It's hard to say when you've got Ronan, who has won it before. He knows how to win this sort of show. Then you've got two new judges that have never done this before. So whether they're going to have beginner's luck, or you know, it really depends. And I think that's probably going to be best answered after the first or second week of the live shows, because I think really it depends on who is the most dedicated, who is going to mentor the most, who is going to put the most time into their contestants. If you've got a mentor that will sit there, I mean, because you've got to look at, say, Australia's Got Talent. The judges go in there, they give their verdict, and that's it. They come back the next week and they give their verdict, and they come back the next week. With the X Factor, it's pretty much a 7-day a week show for our judges, as a
Right.
mentor, let's say after the first eviction show, the mentor will be up with their contestants the next morning, and they're picking songs. They're choosing songs for them, and they're working with them with our vocal coaches. We're working in the studios to work out the arrangements. So they're doing that. They're spending a couple of hours with each of their contestants. So they've got possible 6 hours at least spending with their contestants. Then the next day they go into styling. So they're going into workshops to how they're going to be styled to suit that song. Then the next day they go in and they start working with the musicians so that they get the right arrangement, so that they're singing in the same, because we can't do the full version of every song, so we have to cut that down. And the
Mm.
next day they actually go into the studio, they're performing on the stage with choreographers or with the stylists. And then the next day we're doing rehearsals, which is start to finish, mic techniques, performance, lights, sound checks. The next day they're performing live. So the
Mm.
judges are with these contestants every day. So it really depends on how much each judge is willing to dedicate to their group. And I think, with Rona last year, he was a standout. He was there every step of the way, waiting, chatting with them while they're performing, while they're rehearsing, while they're doing sound checks. He was there, giving them techniques, giving them tips. Rona's performed on that many stages around the world, so he's got those tips. So this year we're looking at 4 judges that have performed around the world for millions of people that have these techniques. So really it just comes down to who out of our mentors is dedicated enough to push their 3, or at the end of the day, their number 1 over the line.
All right. Well, I'll remember to email you in a couple of weeks and get maybe a more definitive answer on that. But
I'll be happy to.
all right. And last one, you got the X Factor coming up for the rest of the year. As we've moved obviously towards these live performances. Have you got anything else coming up in the pipeline? Any acting appearances?
Look, nothing at the moment. We've been working flat stick to make sure that we've got the best possible show to put forward for X Factor this year. So we've
Of
been
course.
working day and night. The amount of times we leave the edit suite, and look, not just me. I'll go in there and I'll do voices, but we've got the editors that sit there, and sometimes I'll go in at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they walk in and say, "Hey, good, we left here at 2:30 in the morning." You think, like these people are putting in 20-hour days because they're the behind the scenes, but they are the ones that make the show work, and so everyone's been pushing so hard. So I've been working as much as possible on this show. So when we get into the live shows, it's more so 3 days for me of doing the rehearsals than the 2 performance shows. So in between there, the auditions are starting up again for stuff in Australia, and then when the show finishes, looks like I'm heading over to the UK. I'm going to do a few different bits and pieces, have a few meetings over there, and hopefully throw in a few auditions. And then after Christmas, I'm heading over to the States again, looking meetings, managers, auditions over there.
Wow.
But it's hard because this show, we started filming in March, so this show takes up the whole year. So auditioning for things, it's really depending on availability. I can go for an audition for something, and if they say, "Great, you've got the role, are you available in June?" And I say, "No, I'm not, because I'm doing the X Factor in Australia." So it's one of those hard things to juggle, but X Factor, they're extremely happy to try and work around when we can, but I am completely 100% dedicated to X Factor. So at the moment, I'm grabbing it with both hands, and we're going to take it all the way. So I'm so pumped about this year. I've been waiting for the live shows for months now, and I can't wait to get there. So I'm very excited for a couple of days' time.
All right. Well, Luke Jacobz, a very busy man at the moment, but thank you for your time and good luck for the show for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It's been a great chat. Thanks a lot.
No worries. And the final boot camp episode on Monday, then into the home visits Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then the first performance show Monday the 19th. X Factor host and all-round television star Luke Jacobz there. Well, that's it for this podcast. Thanks for listening, and join me real soon for another podcast. Until then, I'm Aaron Ryan for tvcentral.com.au. See you then.